If you were called to testify in a court case, you would expect it. You've seen it on television and in the movies, and you would expect to place your hand on a Bible and declare that you would tell the truth, so help you God. You would promise to tell the truth, and you would be expected to do so. For those of us in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Ten Commandments are considered a basic part of our religion. Among the first of the commandments in the Old King James is this one: "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain." One of the meanings of that has to do with making a vow or promise. To take an oath, to make a vow, and to do so in the name of your God was expected to guarantee the truth of what you said. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. That is, if you vow by God's proper name, and that's not the word God, God's proper name is written as 4 Hebrew letters, which observant Jews do not pronounce at all. If you swear by that particular name, then do what you say you will do. For Jews and Christians, and of course those who practice many other religions, keeping a promise or a vow, well, it's generally the expected thing to do. Of course, honor your vow, keep your promise. But is there a time when we ought not keep such a promise? Think of the times when we bargain with God. In a recent sermon at Zion Church, I mentioned foxhole faith, where a soldier in battle makes all kinds of promises to God if only God will help him or her escape with their life. In a time of stress or crisis, nearly all of us, I suspect, have made a promise, a vow to God, a kind of a foxhole faith promise. But imagine that soldier in battle who makes a foxhole promise and then survives and believes that God has spared them. Suppose they promised God that if they were spared, they would become a pastor. But suppose they would make a terrible pastor. Maybe they weren't suited for that kind of work at all. That might not be what God intended for their life. That soldier might well have made a vow they ought not keep, that God would not want them to keep. And what about that infamous story in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures? It's one of the most troubling stories in the Bible. Lynn Japinga wrote that it is bad parenting, bad religion, and bad judgment come together in a perfect storm. The story is found in the book of Judges in the Old Testament, chapter 11. Jephthah was a soldier leading the Israelites into battle. Jephthah made a vow to God that if God enabled him to win the battle, when he returned home, whoever, whatever, first came out of the house to greet him, Jephthah would offer that as a burnt offering to God. Jephthah and his men won the battle. Jephthah returned home, where he was greeted first by his daughter, his one and only child. He said that he could not break this vow, so too bad for the daughter. His daughter, playing the role of the submissive female, agrees to let her father take her life in order to keep his vow to God. And so we read this line: her father did with her according to the vow that he had made. And in the New Testament book of Hebrews, this same Jephthah is praised as a man of great faith. If we believe that really, as we're told in the New Testament book of 1 John, if we believe really that God is love, God's orientation toward you and me, toward all people, is love, then Jephthah's fulfilling of his vow ought to be seen for what it is. At best, it's an act of misplaced faith. At worst, it was an incredibly stupid thing to do. Surely, God did not want Jephthah to kill his own daughter or anyone else because of a foolish vow he had made. God would have been honored more by the breaking of that vow than the keeping of it. That would have been the loving thing to do. Our God is not a God of nonsense. If you make a vow, a promise to God that is stupid, break it. To keep a stupid vow is superstition, not faith. It's nonsense, and it does not honor God. It's really more in keeping with honoring a God who is not good and loving, but evil. That is not the God in whom we Christians believe. Promises, vows are important, whether made to God or anyone else. Of course, keeping one's word is a good thing. But the story of Jephthah and his daughter does teach us that there are times when we ought not keep a promise. There are times when we ought not keep a promise, even a promise made to God.